S-4785 is bipartisan legislation that would extend until September 30th of this year, 2022, the mandatory special assessment of $5,000 imposed on those convicted of certain offenses involving sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, or human trafficking. Human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar criminal industry that denies freedom to 24.9 million people around the world and generates more than $150 billion annually in illicit profits. It is a reprehensible crime that touches communities across the country, from major cities to suburban enclaves and rural back roads, and can cause devastating, sometimes irreparable, harm to victims who fall prey to cunning traffickers. The fight against human trafficking requires a comprehensive multidisciplinary strategy that includes prosecution of traffickers so that they cannot harm again, protection of victims through services to increase safety and treat trauma, and prevention efforts to alleviate social vulnerabilities to exploitation. From providing immediate emergency care when victims are identified to long-term care that helps survivors recover from their victimization, victim assistance is vital to the federal anti-trafficking strategy and efforts to combat sexual abuse and exploitation, as well as child pornography, which continue to be a threat to our children and other vulnerable persons. The Justice for Victims of Trafficking Act, commonly referred to as the JVTA, requires federal sentencing judges to impose a special assessment of $5,000 on those convicted of federal crimes involving sexual abuse, child pornography, sexual exploitation, or human trafficking. The fees collected from the special assessment are transferred to the Domestic Trafficking Victims Fund and used to fund and enhance vital services and programming that assist victims and survivors who have been abused, exploited, and/or trafficked. This past Sunday, the provision that requires judges to impose a special assessment expired, which necessitates the passage of this extension until the end of the fiscal year, when it can be renewed as part of other ongoing legislation to fund the government. Congress must do all we can to ensure that resources are available to support the needs of victims and survivors of human trafficking, sexual abuse, and sexual exploitation, who often have complex needs requiring a broad array of trauma-focused services and treatment. Although we are considering the bill as introduced by Senators Klobuchar and Cornyn, I must also thank Representative Karen Bass for her work to introduce the House companion H.R. 8684 and for her continued dedication to helping victims and survivors of human trafficking, sexual abuse, and sexual exploitation. I urge all my colleagues to support the extension of the $5,000 special assessment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from New York.